welcome to another fantastic session for the FuturePrint Virtual Summit. I'm very pleased to be joined today by David Cawthorne from FacePrint, and together we're going to be having a conversation about the key trends in print, how FacePrint are dealing with them at the coalface of our industry, and how the industry has changed over the many years of David's experience in seeing it adapt and flex. Now, to introduce David, he began his career in 1994 at the then in-house print department of what was Boots the Chemist. His career has taken him through the UK commercial print industry to FacePrint, where his focus today is helping businesses grow through the power of print. David is an active member of the Independent Print Industries Association, and through FacePrint has assisted with shaping the company's consultative and creative approach to building partnerships with its customers. For those of you who don't know me, and for all of our international guests, my name is Brendan Perring. I am the General Manager of the Independent Print Industries Association, as well as the Chairman of the British Association for Print and Communication, which is part of the same group as the IPA. I started my career in journalism on the Sunday Times of Scotland as an investigative reporter, and actually cut my teeth in print production back at the Edinburgh University when I was the editor of the student newspaper, and you had to do everything from taking the photos to writing the articles to doing the layout to even taking it down and handing the files over to our printer as it was then. No sending it over the internet. So my career in print really started when I became the editor of Print Monthly magazine and the editor of SignLink magazine in the signs and graphics sector. I did that for 10 years before moving on to the Independent Print Industries Association, where I've been for 2 years. So, a little bit about today's talk. What is a really key thing is that for the last decade, a trend has been building momentum across the UK print industry that's seen a core of commercial printers make the very brave decision to let go of client accounts where they were continuously being beaten up on price and making almost no margin anymore. Instead, this group of commercial printers have drawn on the incredible depth of both their creative and technical know-how within their businesses and have deployed it to excite clients, propose highly innovative print-based marketing campaign products, and deliver a very high level of value to their clients' businesses. What that really means is they're no longer print production factories. They are partners to their customers and also a trusted source of creativity and inspiration. A reliable platform to assist them with pursuing long-term business growth. What's more, on average, they have seen a significant reduction perhaps in the volume of print being produced, and yet they are now actually being able to make more profit than they were before as a result of this. So to discuss these trends and to tell us his story and that of FacePrint, David, thanks very much for your time and welcome to the FuturePrint Conference.
Welcome.
So maybe if we could start off, could you just tell me a little bit about your own history in the print industry? You've come all the way from that in-house print department. Can you just, as sort of a potted history, tell me how you found your way through the industry?
Just to get a point, I've now been in the industry for 45 years. I joined the in-house plant for Boots the Chemist in Nottingham as an apprentice bookbinder. And in those days, typesetting was by metal. A four-colour press was extremely advanced, and all finishing was virtually by hand. Where you look at that today, you have 10 and 12 colour presses, all artwork is digital, finishing equipment is highly advanced, and the technical changes from when I first started to where we are today have just been enormous.
And in terms of how you've seen the industry change since that time, obviously, when you started, print was completely ubiquitous. It was the biggest form of communication on the planet, let alone the UK. The UK was, if not the top, the second or third producer of printed products around the world. We are still the fifth largest producer of printed products in the world in the UK, believe it or not. And the UK print industry is still bigger than the car manufacturing industry in the UK, believe it or not. But that is the reality. But because of the nature of print, because of how ubiquitous it was, because it's everything from school books to what you print off of your emails these days, people have overlooked us as an industry almost because we were like breathing air. It just happened, print just appeared. So how have you seen our industry change over the years that you've been in it?
I've seen that we've had to become a lot more creative. We've obviously got a massive competitor now, which is the internet, social media, television. Radio is used a lot more for advertising, which print was always used for all those mediums. The biggest challenge we've seen is how do we combat the internet? The way we go around that is to work with the internet. I see print as a medium that supports companies to help drive traffic towards using the internet. So we don't really see it as a competitor. We see it as really as an advantage to the print trade if it's used correctly.
Yeah. And in terms of at Phase, since you've been there, when you arrived at Phase Print, can you now give me a little bit of a history about the company and the processes that you've gone through at Phase since your time there to maybe change its business model, how it communicates with its customers, and so forth?
Sure. When I first joined, Phase Print was established 22 years ago. I was originally as a B3 printer. Over the number of years, it developed into a B2. Had maybe 700-800 clients, but they were all very small accounts, which meant a lot of hard work by the team to manage all those accounts. What we've tried to do is to increase the average order value by targeting larger accounts, but by trying to create and offer solutions for those customers. So the idea being is we look after fewer customers, we can look after those customers better, but we can be creative. And that in turn has helped improve our added value, our profitability. And that's the program that we're carrying on with.
Yeah, and as we can see on the poster behind you, as you say, it's all about creative solutions, delivering results via the power of print.
Absolutely.
From your experience of when you started this process of engaging with those higher end customers, having conversations with them, and we'll move on to an anecdote in a minute from you. What's it like trying to educate a traditional print buyer? So a print procurement manager, brand manager, marketing agency. What's it like trying to get into the skin of them and actually help them understand what print can do for their brand, for their companies? Is that a really difficult process? Are you having to really push the rock uphill?
It is. It's not easy. You're trying to change a lot of attitudes. Sometimes print buyers that don't understand the true value of print, and that's why we have the Power of Print slogan. We're trying to convince them that it isn't just a commodity that you print a few thousand leaflets, send them out and hope you get some sort of reaction to it. What we're trying to get them to understand is that print is very powerful, and executed in the right way, it can bring real results for the end client. What we try to do is to work with them so we get the full circle, and by that we understand the problems they have or their goals. We create the solution, but then we're very keen afterwards to find out what the feedback is. Did it work? Were your sales, were they improved? Were your contact levels improved? Did you get greater footfall through to your websites? And if it did, great. If it didn't, right, we can potentially revise that product to actually get your goals achieved, which is the most important thing.
So moving on to the next question then really is the whole genesis for this talk and for this session actually came out of a event that the IPA runs every year, very sadly not this year due to coronavirus, but every year, called Meet the Trade Buyer, Meet the Trade Supplier. Now, that event morphed and grew and expanded and changed over the years, and the event that David came to last year and represented Phase Print at, we had a huge different variety of people there. As I said, we had people who were the managing directors of marketing agencies, people who were like a procurement professional for, say, an energy company or a charity. And we also had, of course, professional marketing directors and print management companies there. And I got into a conversation with David, and he was explaining to me a really interesting campaign that Phase Print had done for its customers, that had seen them produce a really highly innovative direct mail piece. And it really sparked my imagination, and it's something I've actually talked about and used as an example in many talks since. So what I thought would be nice is to hear it again from the horse's mouth, and David could just take us a little bit through that campaign, how Phase managed it and what it ended up doing for your clients. So David, take it away.
Yeah, happy to do that. The clients in the construction industry, they hire out basically cherry picking machines or any form of technology where you need a high reach. And for a number of years, they've been producing a dormant mailer, which was a simple 2-page DL leaflet that would go out every month to a dormant account who hadn't hired or purchased anything for 12 months. They realised that it was always the same product, the same image, the same discount, and they soon realised it would turn up on the desk, 10,000 a month, and go straight in the bin. And they needed to do something about that. So that was the challenge. Our solution was to create a pop-up, basically an A5, and as you open it, you've got a piece of the cardboard that will open up and it pops up. And because of their nature of their business, we took some of their images of one of their long arm reach machines, and as you open it up, the machine opens up with it. With their normal messages that were on there. The key thing with this one was that they would perhaps spend £800 a month on the DL leaflet. The first run was for 6,000 of these pop-ups, and that actually cost them £7,500, which I had to convince them to spend £7,500 instead of the 900. Took a little while, and eventually they tried the first one.
And if I remember rightly, this was you kind of seeing this major customer who'd been with FacePrint for quite a long time, seeing its order value every year just shrink that little bit more on these stock items. And so it was that point that you took action and went, actually, this is a really valuable customer that I think we can do more for. Let's do something quite out there and a little bit risky. So yeah, go on.
Yeah. After as I mentioned earlier, the key feature of the process that we go through is to be able to understand the feedback and the success. Within the first 6 weeks of this mailer going out, they generated £330,000 of new business, which has been verified by the marketing team. It's not a figure I come up with. We've since produced our own publications to promote that, so it is a justifiable figure that's there. They've since ran that all the way up till COVID, every 3 months, and they've just before COVID, a whole campaign had generated them an additional £1 million worth of business from old accounts who haven't purchased for over 12 months. But the way we did that was obviously understanding the issues in the first place, but by a combination of our design team, we were able to put that design and the various concepts together for them. The in-house printing, the in-house finishing, all the way through to the mailing, meant that we were able to manage the whole process within FacePrint's factory.
Fantastic. And so really what that means is that customer is no longer a customer. They're really a partner of yours, aren't they? I mean, if you're generating that much business for them now through using the power of print and what's technically possible, they're coming to you as a bit of a guru to help them with this, this aspect. And it's what that really means is that's moved you from basically being a print factory that is capable of quoting out for work and doing it, that's being creatively produced by an intermediary, normally a marketing manager or an agency. You came up with that concept, you delivered it to the client wholeheartedly, and have actually become fundamental to their process of growth.
Very much so, to the point where we've now developed 2 other products for them as well, not as complicated as this pop-up. But that sort of demonstrates that, yes, that's the way that they think of FacePrint now in a totally different way.
So yeah, we'll now move on to the next segment. In terms of the wider commercial print industry, I've had a similar experience, and on the customer side of the equation that you've just described, that I think maybe will really help bring this into focus. And it's something that we at both the IPA and the BAPC are really very passionate about helping get across to our membership. And I, prior to coming to work for the IPA, spent a short gardening leave interim working for an international PR and marketing agency called the Mission Marketing Group, which had an office in Bristol, in Clifton. And less than 150 metres from the office front door was a printer on the high street there. Now, on its sign emblazoned above the door is proudly established in 1972, and this is a very major concern. I mean, it takes up 6 whole units on this high street. I've been in there out of geeky interest a couple of times, having been the editor of Print Monthly for all those years. And, you know, they had a 4-colour litho press in there, battery of different digital presses, loads of different finishing equipment, high-end different specialty stuff, and, you know, 8 or 9 people beavering away in the background. And I'm sitting here thinking, how is it possible that a high street commercial printer has A, grown to this size on the high street, and B, has managed to maintain this position on the high street? So I kind of went away bemused but interested, and then I got my answer very quickly 2 weeks later. We had a campaign for a charitable organisation there, which was going to have a very large charity awards dinner at the end of the year. Now, what they were doing was, over the course of the year, there was lots of people applying for these awards for voluntary organisations and good works in the community. And they wanted to basically take the photograph of every single person who had been nominated for an award and put it on a picture, a Polaroid, and hang it on a tree. And there would be literally hundreds of these things on the night of the gala, hanging on trees. Now, I was given the task, knowing a thing about print, and there was almost no one else, by the way, in the office that knew anything about print, to go and facilitate this and find it out. So money wasn't really an object for the client, but the printer didn't know that. So I called 3 or 4 different print organizations, and really all they did was go, okay, how many do you need? Is it variable? What's the file type? Thank you very much. I'll send you a quote. And I then got 4 or 5 quotes back. And the random thing was, they were, you know, those quotes were exactly the same job, varied by, you know, $2,000 sometimes. It was insane. I couldn't understand how one print organisation could quote almost nothing for the job and another one was almost extortionate. So I thought, okay, well, Cliftons are just over the road, so I'll go and have a quick chat with them. So I went down there, and straight off I got met by a young man at the door and started to explain. He said, actually, hang on, just wait a second, I'm going to go and get the MD. So waited a couple of minutes, and the MD came out, and he sat down with me and said, right, okay, let's start again. What are you trying to do with this job? What's your end goal? And I explained to him the client's brief and what they wanted to do and the special nominations, and he went, okay, right, how long are these Polaroids going to be hanging on the trees for? And I said, oh, probably about 10 hours from when we first set up the room to when the delegates came in. Okay, well, you're going to need specialty paper for that, because otherwise your Polaroids are going to be curly, right? So do you want your Polaroids to curl? It's like, no, they have to be perfect. Okay, so they need to be special grammage. Okay, so have you considered a spot gloss on the Polaroid so they actually look like a Polaroid instead of just being a pretend Polaroid? Oh, can you do that? Yep, of course we can do that. Right, put that in there, spot gloss. And we went through this entire process of different things, punching, okay, well, we can put a ribbon in that for you. And what he was doing was a consultative process. And by the end of that, he said, right, that's what I would recommend to your client. But before I tell you the price, go and talk to the client first and see if they're up for it, and then I'll give you a quote, because I don't want to bother quoting on it if they're not interested. Okay, great. Talk to the client. They were blown away. They were like, yep, that sounds amazing. Let's do this. I said, okay, give me the quote. The quote was $2,000 more expensive than the most expensive quote I got. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Gave it to the client as the price. Didn't blink. Just went, yep, order it. Great. So for all of a 10-minute conversation, that commercial printer on the high street managed to increase their order value by £2,000 over the most expensive quote that their competitors in the same area had done, just for a 10-minute conversation. So, David, does that sound like something that you identify with as an issue in our industry? And how do you deal with that issue at Phase?
Absolutely. That initial meeting, I think, is vital. A lot of printers will receive the inquiry, put their very best price in, and hope to be successful. A phone call, these days with COVID, it probably will need to be a phone call or maybe some form of video chat, just to try and get that conversation moving, so you understand why they want that piece of print, what that print is being bought for, what it's got to do, what it's got to achieve. And with the power of print, there are so many different solutions as that printer offered. And once you can offer the solution, you can talk about that before you ever talk about price. Sell them the solution, then give them the price for it.
Yeah. So could you just give me maybe a couple of more examples of interesting case studies or interactions you've had with your customers that, again, exemplify how you're doing things differently at Phase?
One that actually carries on from the previous Popple, in a completely different sector in education. I was visiting clients in London, and I was going through the same story that I just spoke about, the construction Popple, and showed them the sample. What I was intrigued by, they all loved it, but they said, we can develop this even further. Oh, that's interesting. And what they did, they called it the bumpy road, and it was to target students who maybe had started a course, because they were specialising in online courses. For reasons, one reason or another, they decided to stop, and they wanted obviously to try and get them back on course again, if you like. So they took the same concept, had a pop-up road, let us help you through your journey. But the way they helped to develop it was to actually then have leaflets that were attached to the pop-up itself, which gave more scope for more information. And that was fantastically received. What we were pleased about was being able to take our original initiative and able to have a meeting with another client and come up with yet another product from that initial starting point.
Yeah. And what was when you went through that process with them, what was the value that you feel was given to that customer, and how did it help move their business on for the long term?
It gave them a new insight of what was capable within print. They'd never seen anything like the pop-ups before. That led to conversations of all the products that we were able to produce. They tended to stick with brochures, leaflets, all the basic type of printed product, but then it kind of opened their eyes up to what was possible. And we've gone on since then to develop 2 or 3 more other unique products that grab people's attention, especially particularly students. It needs to be innovative, and it's going to gain their attention quite quickly.
So if we move on to the next segment, then another key issue that we have been really working with in the industry is this voice back out to educating the marketing professionals. And whether it's partners that we have, like such as Canon at the IPA, who are a sponsor, who are actually focusing almost in their entire research, and there's another talk that you can see on the FuturePrint Virtual Summit, which is led by Matthew Faulkner. They conducted a very large research survey, and they spoke to 250 brand marketeers across Europe. And the gap between understanding what print was capable of today and what in reality they thought it was capable of is actually quite huge and quite scary. There is a very, very poor education level out there at the brand marketeer level. And this is certainly something that we experienced when trade shows were still allowed to happen at the IPA, where we would go to shows such as B2B Marketing Expo, Marketing Week Live, Technology for Marketing, all marketing facing shows. And the vast majority of conversations we were having went something like this. We had our magazine with us, whether it was Innovation Magazine from the IPA or Spark Magazine, which is one that we do that goes straight out to the marketeers. And we were handing this out in the aisle to normally a demographic of people between the age of, I'd say, about 21 and 40 maybe, in general at those type of shows, going out to explore what was going on. And the conversation that was happening again and again and again was us stopping them with print, getting into it with them, trying to understand what their marketing agency was doing, trying to find out what their customers' challenges were, and educating them about print. And in the main, most of them were resistant to start off with, and quite sort of brush off about the power of print and what it could do. And handing them a magazine, I would start the conversation and go, okay, so what are you holding in your hands? And they'd say a magazine. I'd be like, right, do you like it? Is it interesting? And they look through and go, yeah, that's fantastic. Wow, this is really beautiful, incredible. And they'd be touching the pages and everything. I was like, so you'd say that magazine is exciting you and engaging you at the moment. Yeah, it's awesome, thanks. And this is free? I was like, yeah, it's free, you can have it. And I said, that's print you're holding in your hand. Oh, yeah. And we're having a conversation because of it. Yeah? Yes. And I said, what if I'd just gone and tried to scan your badge and not handed you this piece of print? Would you have stopped and had this chat with me? Well, no, not really. Okay. Then I'd start talking to them and getting them to some of our stands, like, for instance, taking them to the XM Pi stand on our village there, which would explain to them about variable data printing and how you can version. Then I'd take them around to the talking print stand to show how you can add video to print and embellish it that way. Or through to the Entala stand, where we'd be explaining to them about specialty papers. And it blew their mind. They had no idea that this stuff was possible. And we were one stand there amongst many. And I think the key takeaway for this was that if the process that FaZe is doing can be taken through, if you can speak to your clients and customers and help them understand what is possible with the incredible technology that our industry has at its disposal, you can make real strides forward. So, David, if you're his advice and you're speaking out there to, say, business to consumer led print organizations, specifically maybe retail or high street based printers, what was your advice to them about how they can start to going about this process of re-engaging with their customers and starting to have those conversations based on value and not price? How would you begin to restructure that?
The way we've started to do it at FacePrint is by using video links. Because COVID is going to give a whole new set of challenges. So we're using social media as much as possible. We've put a lot of information about all the various products and services that we can offer on our own website. But most importantly, recently we just invested in the last year in new machinery that can automatically add coding and QR codes, which are becoming very popular again. But we explain the benefits, where a lot of printers will say, we can fold, we can die cut, we can code, we can tip on. That's fine. But why would you, the end client, want any of those processes? So we go to great lengths to try and explain what the benefits to you will be and the potential returns that you will get from using those whole vast of technology that we have in the print trade.
Mm. And you also, if I remember rightly speaking to you before, you use the resources of the guys on the factory floor, the people who are actually going to be creating this stuff, their technical know-how and experience, and drawing that into understanding what you can do to really make the most out of a customer campaign. Is that right? Absolutely.
They're the guys who, as you say, they're on the shop floor. They know what will and won't work. They're very, very flexible in trying to push the boundaries of what's possible and being able to create new initiatives that can work for the end client.
Yeah. And does that excite and empower them? Do you feel like your team at FaZe then has more of a sense of everyone from, because they, and this happens at other IPA members, another good example is Spectrum Print and Plastics that actually follows this exact same scenario and bring their production team in-house at creative meetings to try and get their take on what they can do and what else could be done. Do you feel that empowers them? Do they feel more part of the process and more energized to work at FacePrint because of that?
Absolutely. FacePrint is one team. Every success that we've had has been created through the hard work and the thinking of everyone that's involved. And yes, it does. It keeps everyone engaged with the client. Because sales can win an account, but at the end of the day, it's that final product that's delivered that is, in my opinion, the real sale. Because if that's right, if that's delivering the results that we promise, the clients will come back to you.
Yeah. So before I just move to the last segment of my questions to you, I wanted to give you another example that really illustrates this point. So another gentleman that we met at the last B2B Marketing Expo came up to the stand, went through that conversation piece with him, and I found out that he was the managing director, or marketing director, sorry, for a very, very large white label jewelry manufacturer. So a lot of the jewelry ranges that you see in places like House of Fraser or other major retailers is branded as if it's theirs. It's their jewelry range. But actually, it's obviously manufactured by a white label manufacturer who's tweaked it a little bit and given them a specialty range. So they were this very large white label jewellery manufacturer behind the scenes. And he explained to me and gave me a challenge and said, right, I've ordered 10,000 big, thick, 120-page catalogues of our entire trade service range every year for the past 10 years. And I've sent that out to my customers so that they can order from us. But actually, what I've seen over the years is that's quite expensive for me to do. And slowly but surely, we're kind of seeing our customer base drop off through ordering through that. We're seeing an increase in them just coming to our website. So look, I'm actually on the verge of cancelling my entire run of these catalogues. Why should I keep going? So I instantly said, right, come and speak to Antalis. Took him around the corner to Antalis and pulled out their swatch book. And obviously in their swatch book are incredible pearlescent silvers, golds, blues, greens, with, you know, flecks of mica in them and all sorts of incredible specialty papers. And I said, look, stop me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that your catalogue is organised into jewellery colour themes? Yep. Okay, so greens, blues, silvers, golds. Yeah, okay, great. So what if you use this specialty paper ranges to, when you've got that segment, to really make your catalogue explode? So you don't need to put every single nut, diamond, bolt of your jewellery range in there. You just need to give a flavour of it and explain that they can find the full range on your website. And you can do that if I take you over to XMPie later through either an app that they could download as a trade provider and even scan the page, through to something as simple as just printing the web address, or even a QR code on that page so they can scan it and go instantly over to order. When he understood that you could use the specialty paper to create a more bespoke, high-end marketing tool instead of just a big, thick catalogue, it blew his mind. And again, he didn't know about it. When I took him over to XMPie and explained to him that he could version every single catalogue to the individual recipient the trade customer, that blew his mind. He was like, wait a minute, so I could use my in-house data on my customers and version every catalogue so it's personally addressed to them? Yes, you can do that today. It's been around for 20 years, but yes, you can. He then turned around, shook my hand and said, right, you've saved my print to this job, and we're going to go back to them, ask them if they can use this. I've got Antalis' details, got XMPie details. We're going to wrap this up and I'm going to keep doing my catalogue. And again, I'm not a salesperson. I was a print editor of a print magazine for 10 years and now run a trade association. That's not my thing. But again, it was just a 10, 15 minute interested, passionate conversation with him about saying, look, don't just drop out on print quite yet. Yeah. So the last question to you, David, is if we look at FacePrint, what are the product segments and areas of real growth, COVID aside, because we're all getting hammered by COVID at the moment, but prior to COVID, where were you seeing the real growth and areas of exploration for you at FacePrint? And the last thing is, what is in the future for FacePrint?
The areas of growth that we're looking at are online, basically, but by that I mean it's being able to offer offline marketing to help online customers drive traffic through to their websites, which I mentioned earlier. This is where we see print working alongside the modern technology, using things like voucher codes with discount codes or QR codes to obviously be able to open all the websites instantly. Using that on different forms of mediums. That could be the pop-ups that we use. It could be a little small credit card tipped onto a flyer with a unique code to that client. It could be, as I mentioned, voucher books. It could be a triple tear-off card where you get 3 or 4 different cards that you can use every month. But they're all means of driving traffic to the client's website. And that is partly the power of print to be able to do that. As far as the future for FacePrint, we have invested recently in more finishing kit, because it's the end product that counts. A printed sheet's fine, but you can't do anything with a flat printed sheet. It's how you can convert that, what you can convert that into. So we've invested more recently in foil blocking and die cutting has come in-house, tipping on machines, a lot of investment in technology for instant proofing. So we just looked at technology to see how we can make the business a lot more future-proof, if you like, a lot more efficient, and to be able to deliver those solutions going forward.
And David, how do people get in touch with you? What is your website address and your number?
The website address is phaseprint.com. Phone number is 07720 217 690. And the email address is sales@phaseprint.com.
Wonderful. Okay, David. Well, unless you've got anything else to add, thank you so much for your time today on this session. It's been really interesting and insightful to hear about how you have changed things up at Phaseprint and how you're seeing that success. I'm not just saying this because you're one of our very proactive members, but I really do see Phaseprint as a poster child for how print organizations in our industry need to adapt and change and flex and fundamentally reorganize how they approach the customer, how they talk to the customer. Because I think what has to be brutally said is that living in a quote and hope situation for the next 5 years will unfortunately not see your business continue to be here in 5 years' time. You have to move away from that situation where your sales team are just, or your quoting team are just sitting there having inbounds, waiting for the inbound and then quoting back out. It won't be a long-term solution for success. Understanding what your clients' pain points are, having meetings with them and developing stuff with them, that will be the growth path in the future. So, David, without further ado, thank you very much for your time, and I will look forward to seeing all of you delegates on the next session for the FuturePrint Virtual Summit.